Have you ever noticed how the world now kneels before the broken, not to lift them, but to keep them broken? We wrap wounds in praise. We worship pain as proof of purity. We hand medals to the defeated, not for rising, but for staying down. You don't have to win anymore to be celebrated. You just have to suffer. You just have to be loud about it. Show your scars, broadcast your breakdowns, and society will gather like moths to the flame of your fragility. This is not empathy, this is entertainment. And in this game, strength is not admired, it's feared. Resilience is not revered, it's mistaken for arrogance. The moment you stop crying, they stop clapping. The moment you rise, they call you cold. Have we mistaken compassion for worship, or have we simply grown afraid of those who remind us what we could be if we stopped surrendering? This is where it begins, the cult of weakness. Society once celebrated the man who stood tall against the storm. Today we hand the crown to the one who collapses first. There is no glory in endurance anymore, only in exhibition. You bleed, you post, you gain followers. You whisper your trauma, and they echo it back in likes. Validation has replaced virtue. Victimhood has become a brand, and the more helpless you appear, the more attention you receive. This is not healing, it's inflation. The emotional economy is booming on borrowed sorrow. But nothing gets resolved, because solving the problem means ending the applause, and no one wants to lose the spotlight. Nietzsche called it the slave morality, the inversion of values, where the weak label the strong as evil, where those who cannot rise demonize those who do. In this upside-down morality, pain becomes moral superiority, and power becomes sin. So we begin to hide our ambition, tone down our excellence, pretend we're lost too, because the crowd does not want to be led. They want company in their collapse. And if you refuse to fall with them, they will say you lack heart. They do not fear cruelty, they fear clarity, because clarity forces confrontation with the truth, with responsibility. Do you ever feel like someone finally sees the part of you you've always hidden? Here, you don't have to hide anymore. You're safe now. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel so we can keep walking this path together. Thank you. With the fact that maybe, just maybe, your suffering is not your identity. And maybe healing requires more than applause. It requires change. But change is violent, not in action, but in consequence. It threatens the very currency of modern belonging, shared pain. It removes your ticket to the stage. It demands you become a participant in your life, not a performer in your tragedy. And so we sit in circles, praising each other's chains. We mistake trauma bonding for intimacy. We turn therapy into theater, and we baptize our limitations as if they were virtues. But pain is not a god, and your weakness is not holy. It is part of your story, not the destination. You are not bad for breaking, but you are not divine for staying broken. There is a war beneath the surface, a quiet rebellion against the worship of what keeps us weak. And if you've ever felt out of place in a world that celebrates collapse, it's not because you're unkind, it's because you remember. You remember what strength feels like. You remember silence that isn't shameful. You remember rising without asking for applause. You remember what the world was before we crowned the wound. So what happens if you refuse to kneel? What if you stand, not in spite of your pain, but beyond it? We'll begin to ask that question in the next part of the journey. As Nietzsche once said, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." And perhaps your why is the refusal to be worshipped for your weakness. What if the very thing you thought was love was actually pity in disguise? What if the comfort you clung to was slowly turning into a cage? There is a moment when being understood begins to suffocate, when the soft words no longer heal, when the warm hands holding you become the chains keeping you still. We speak so often of needing support, but what if support without challenge becomes sabotage? What if all the sympathy is just another form of sedation? This is not about cruelty, it's about truth. The truth that growth demands resistance, and that real care doesn't leave you where it found you. You've seen it. The gentle voice that whispers, "Take your time," becomes the one that says, "Never move." The safe space turns into a soft prison, and the people who once listened begin to fear your progress because it outgrows their pity. There is a hidden economy in your dependence. The more you lean, the more others feel needed, and sometimes that need becomes possession. Because if you heal, what happens to them? So they keep you close. They call it concern. They say you're not ready. They say the world is too harsh. But underneath, there's a quiet wish that you never find the strength to leave them. It's the ego of the rescuer, the savior complex. Helping becomes identity. Your pain is their purpose, and if you rise, you remove their reason for existing. Nietzsche saw it clearly. The herd does not elevate the individual, it consumes him. It praises conformity, not courage. It does not tolerate assent because every step you climb is a reminder of what they refuse to attempt. So what happens? You shrink. You smile less brightly. You soften your steps, not to be kind, but to be accepted. You let go of your hunger because appetite offends the starving. You become fluent in the language of limitation. You say maybe when you mean yes. You say I'm fine when you want to scream. Because to fully speak your truth would be to threaten the illusion everyone agreed to live in. But here's the truth you're not supposed to say. Healing is not communal. Growth is not democratic. Your becoming will make others uncomfortable. And if it doesn't, you're not becoming. So the question is not who supports you. The real question is who challenges you. Because love that doesn't provoke evolution is not love. It's sedation. And comfort that doesn't lead to freedom is not comfort. It's control. The softest prison is the hardest to escape because it does not bind you with iron, but with affection. It doesn't punish you with pain, but with peace. But you were not made for sedation. You were made for ascension. So if the hands holding you back also hold you with care, then it's time to ask the hardest question of all. Do they love you? Or do they need you to stay small? In the next part of this journey, we'll go deeper into the real cost of shrinking, into the shadows you cast when you forget your own size. As Nietzsche warned, the individual has always had to struggle to keep from being overwhelmed by the tribe, and the tribe wears a gentle smile. Have you ever felt the ache of being too much for a world addicted to mediocrity? There is a silent agreement, unspoken but powerful. Do not shine too bright, do not stand too tall, and above all, do not believe too much in yourself. Ambition is recast as arrogance. Confidence is mistaken for cruelty, and every attempt at greatness is met with the cold gaze of quiet resentment. They don't hate you because you fail. They hate you because you dare. So what is the cost of daring to grow in a world that demands your smallness? Every time you stretch, you make others uncomfortable. Every time you rise, you disturb the dust they've settled in. The very act of becoming of reaching, is a rebellion. You don't even have to speak. Your presence is protest. Your pursuit of purpose is confrontation, because it exposes what they've denied, that more is possible. But here's the truth. They don't hate your light. They hate their shadows. They don't resent your voice. They resent their silence. So they will call your growth a threat. They will call your healing a betrayal. And they will cloak their envy in the language of concern. Be realistic. Don't forget where you came from. Who do you think you are? Each word is a rope, not tied around your body but your mind, a psychological leash dressed as guidance. And if you are not careful, you will begin to believe them. You will start dimming, shrinking, silencing yourself, just to make others feel safe around your light. But you were not born to be safe. You were born to be sovereign. This is the hidden tax of transformation, the solitude, the suspicion, the sabotage, not from strangers, but from the ones closest to you, those who can't bear the mirror you become when you rise. Nietzsche warned, and those who were seen dancing were thought to be insane by those who could not hear the music. And that is what you are now, the dancer in a room full of deaf ears. So the question is not, will they understand you? The question is, will you keep dancing anyway? Because the moment you betray your own evolution to earn their affection, you become what they always wanted, a version of them. But you were meant to unsettle, to awaken, to stir the still waters of the stagnant. And though it hurts to be resented for becoming more, it hurts far worse to betray the one thing that makes life worth living, your becoming. In the next part of this journey, we will look into the anatomy of resentment, where it comes from, and why it follows those who rise. Because before they crown you, they will crucify you. There's a silence that follows success. Not celebration, not pride. A silence made of distance, of eyes that no longer meet yours, of voices that grow quiet when you enter the room. You thought they would cheer for you. You thought they'd be proud. But they are not, because what you built reminds them of what they didn't. And your rise feels like their fall, even when it has nothing to do with them. Resentment doesn't knock, it seeps through laughter, through politeness, through silence too loud to be accidental. And this is where the loneliness begins. You didn't change, you just grew. But growth always feels like betrayal to those who never started. They remember when you needed them, when you asked for advice, when you doubted yourself. And in some quiet part of their heart, they hoped you'd always stay that way, because your dependence validated their importance. Your uncertainty fed their authority. And when you stopped needing them, they mistook your strength for disrespect. They say you've changed, but what they mean is, you've outgrown my control. So now they watch you, not with joy, but with calculation, looking for cracks, waiting for your misstep, because if you fall, they'll feel right again. And this resentment, it's not always malicious. Sometimes it's sadness wearing anger as armor. It's people mourning their unlived lives, and when they see you living yours, they grieve in reverse. But their grief is not your guilt to carry. Nietzsche wrote of the will to power, not domination, but self-overcoming. And when you begin to overcome, you expose the parts of others that chose comfort over courage. They won't say it out loud, but every victory of yours is a reminder of the book they didn't write, the love they didn't fight for, the dream they buried beneath excuses. So your glow becomes a spotlight on their darkness, Not because you intended it, but because truth always shines, even when uninvited. And in this light, they don't know whether to follow you or destroy you. So they whisper, they withdraw, they withhold love, and you, if you are not careful, will start to shrink again, just to be held. But listen to me, you are not responsible for their discomfort. Your growth is not a crime. Their resentment is not your burden. You are not arrogant. You are ascending. And if they cannot meet you where you're going, that is their journey to face. There will be rooms you must leave, people you must release, not out of bitterness, but because the version of you that once needed them no longer exists. You do not need to apologize for evolving. You only need the courage to continue. And in the next part of this journey, we will speak of that courage. The courage to walk alone, to hold your center in a collapsing world, to be misunderstood and still rise. As Nietzsche once said, the higher we soar, the smaller we appear to those who cannot fly. What if your solitude was not a punishment, but a preparation? What if the silence surrounding you was not absence, but alignment? They told you to stay humble. But what they meant was, stay small. They told you not to forget where you came from. But what they feared was where you were going. You are now at the edge. Beyond this point, there is no applause, no maps, no mentors, just your breath, your will, and the question echoing in the dark. Can you keep rising when no one is watching? There comes a point in every journey where the crowd thins, not because you've failed, but because you've stepped into a place where few dare to go. The realm of the self-led, the realm of the sovereign. This is not the loneliness of exile. This is the solitude of mastery, where your direction comes from within, where your validation is your vision, where your discipline is your devotion. In this space, everything becomes quiet. The voices of doubt fade, the noise of approval vanishes, and all that remains is you. Your habits, your choices, your truth. Nietzsche called it becoming who you are. Not finding, not discovering. Becoming. Because it is not out there. It is already inside you, waiting to be carved free. And carving is violent, beautiful, brutal. It means letting go of every excuse, every inherited belief, every soft pillow that kept you numb. It means seeing clearly where you've been lying to yourself, where you've settled, where you've played dumb to stay loved. But no more. Because clarity is freedom, and freedom is terrifying. It means no more blame, no more begging, no more hoping they'll change. It means owning your edge, trusting your solitude, and walking anyway. Even when they mock you, even when they leave you, even when you doubt yourself, you walk. Because the only thing worse than walking alone is standing still among the lifeless. And once you feel what it means to be fully you, undiluted, unapologetic, you will never return to the performance they once called love. The worship of weakness ends here, not with a scream, but with a choice. To no longer seek praise for surviving, to no longer wear pain like a crown, to no longer trade your fire for their comfort. You were not born to be pitied. You were not born to be liked. You were born to remember what the world forgot, that strength is sacred, that clarity is kindness, that silence can be thunder, and that your life is yours to build. So rise even when they kneel, shine even when they hide, speak even when it shakes, because the world needs fewer idols and more examples. As Nietzsche thundered, become who you are, and who you are is waiting.